I got mine from a guy in Nashville. His name is Sam Hawksley.
Okay, cool.
Hawksley, I believe. And he's cool because he names all of his guitars. I think this one's called Noel.
Wow.
So when I got it, he said, "Hey, Hans, Noel's on her way."
Hello and welcome to Mothership Gear. Today I am joined with my friend Hans. He's brought over his Stella acoustic guitar. It's a vintage guitar. It's had a rubber bridge conversion. We're running it through a fractal. And so Hans, tell me about this Stella. How did you get it? What is a rubber bridge? Why a rubber bridge?
Yeah, why? There you go. There's the thumbnail. Why a rubber bridge guitar? Well, also you're running it through a mic too, by the way.
Yes, that is my little secret sauce for picking up those strings. The thing with me is like dead sounding strings are even more fun to capture because it's not going to be an extreme top end, but it will help it get a little bit of that natural air that you want from a guitar.
Great. Well, in your word, you used a word there, dead, which is the whole reason why I was attracted to the rubber bridge concept. I had a friend of mine who got one and I heard him playing it. I'm like, what in the world? That's so cool. And I'd never heard of the concept before. You and I were just looking it up a little bit ago that it's a fairly recent concept from probably just right around 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And where people would take these old vintage Stellas, Harmonies, etc., and then they would put rubber bridges on them, and we'll talk about that in a second about what that means and everything. But I was drawn to the guitar specifically because I wanted a dead sounding guitar. I was going to buy one, and I wanted something that didn't sound hi-fi, but was also really reliable and very playable. Because that whole concept of, acoustic guitar lives in a lot in the 1K to 3K range. That's the area that makes it kind of stick out sometimes in a track. And I'm like, I got to get rid of that. I don't really want that in the track. So when I heard about the rubber bridge guitar, I'm like, well, that's cool. I might be able to get two birds with one stone. And so I asked my friend where he got his, and then he told me a little bit more about that. But the whole concept behind the guitar is that you put these rubber pieces in the bridge where it would normally be string touching either bone or ebony or not bone or plastic, right? And then that's already going to be it's going to ring out and it's going to be high frequency stuff. So the rubber bridge guitar is exactly the opposite of that. Like just it has like an explosive thing on the attack, and then it kind of goes away. Now, so the thing about the idea of then these luthiers getting these guitars, probably pawn shops all over the country, and the thing is, these guitars, if you were just to go into your local pawn shop or Goodwill store or whatever and pick up one of these guitars, they're completely unplayable. And so what these guys do is they take the guitar, they take the neck off, so they heat up the glue, they completely take the neck off the guitar, they take the top off, if necessary, they rebrace it, and then they reset the neck so that it's intonated. And now the guitar goes from being completely unplayable to very playable, and you can put it in a track and you're never worried about it being out of tune.
That's incredible. I did not realize that they're doing a full neck replacement. That is interesting. And I think the result speaks for itself. It's a really recordable guitar sound. So Did you mention who exactly was the luthier?
I got mine from a guy in Nashville. His name is Sam Hawksley.
Okay, cool.
Hawksley, I believe. And he's cool because he names all of his guitars. I think this one's called Noel.
Noel.
So when I got it, he said, "Hey, Hans, Noel's on her way." and I was very excited. And yeah, he's done a great job. One of the things about the guitars that I have mine tuned down to C.
Oh, so, yeah, we were playing guitar together, and I was like moving my hand really far down the neck of my guitar to match your fingers, and I was like, wait, he's in a totally different tune.
Yeah, it's tuned way down, and you have to keep it tuned down at least a whole step, because I mean the tension on this is probably a 60-year-old guitar, so
wow.
And it wasn't I mean, this guitar was not, I mean, it's probably made of plywood or something. I don't know what the wood is, but it isn't like maple or it's not walnut, that's for sure. And then he puts one of the things he does about it that he does with it, and I think most of them do, is they put a pickup in it, so it's not just, and you already talked about that, I'm running through the fractal. I think that's one of the beauties. I have yet in my studio, so this is the first time that this has ever had a mic on it. In my studio, I've probably recorded it on, since I've had it, probably 10 tracks for sure, maybe a little more. And I've always used it plugged in either directly right into my UA Apollo, which I think is amazing, or into Fractal or my HX Stomp, So the pickup thing is pretty cool because it's kind of a secret sauce thing. It gives you the ability to put reverb and stuff on it in the same way that you would electric guitar. And you can put grind on it.
Right. Right, yeah. We had Jacob Garcia bring his over. I forget which brand
He got it from the same guy too, by the way. He got it from Sam Hawksley. And I think his might be, instead of a Stella, I think his is a Harmony.
Okay, so are you guys picking out the guitar, sending it to the luthier, and then he sends it back? He's picking out the luthier for you.
Yeah, he's
picking out the guitar for you.
Yeah. He says, "Hey, I have this one available. Hey, can you make me one?" And I mean, in principle, I don't think the Harmony versus the Stella is a massive audio change necessarily. People could maybe share in the comments what they think about that, but yeah, I mean it's. It's it's a really cool tool to have in your tool belt.
Right. It's the equivalent of what I have with this Epiphone bass in the studio, where Brandon Burr was over and we're recording bass with it. And then I handed it to him and he was like, whoa, I always get them confused. You have flat wound strings and you have round wound.
Oh.
The rounds are way brighter.
Yeah.
These are rounds that have not been changed in probably a decade or more.
So they take on the flat wound vibe.
They take on the flat wound vibe.
I'm glad you mentioned that because these are flat wound strings.
Okay, cool.
I forgot to mention that. That's one of the vibes of the rubber bridge guitar is. So that's part of what makes it dead. Right.
Yeah, and the flat wound sound. Same thing with Brandon Burr's. He has a flat wound bass, and I ran it through the guitar amp because I think with flat wound dead strings, it's kind of like the inverse of what you'd expect. I try to grab a little bit of that high frequency to make up for some of that loss. That's where the microphone comes in. It's not, if I'm by myself and I had that guitar, I would just DI it because you're not in engineer mode, you're in tracking ideas mode.
Right.
But when friends bring over their guitars instead, I'm like, ooh, yay, this is exciting. I could shove a mic pretty close to it, boost it pretty high, and it's not going to be overwhelming. It's not going to be dominant. It's the same reason why you might like dead drums, a dead kick, a dead snare. You can raise it up in the mix and it's not going to compete with everything else. It's going to have a really defined sound that is not spilling into other people's spaces. So you can get away with more, which is fun.
I like that. And you mentioned bass. I have used this because it's, I have it in C right now. Normally I have it at C sharp, but I have it in C because of a track I was working on earlier in the week. But I have used this on a number of lo-fi tracks that I'm working on. And a lot of times when I'm working on lo-fi stuff, I'll use a synth bass
Okay.
So, like an 808 kind of bass thing, or any synth bass necessarily. And then I'll double it with this.
Yeah.
And what's wild is that this, you put a LA2A on it and plug it in direct into the Apollo, it takes on the characteristics of a bass guitar.
Right.
Super wild.
That's cool. And that's kind of the reason why guitar collectors like to have different things in their arsenal, because you're filling in that frequency spectrum gap by now you have a guitar that's comfortable in drop C. You can use it for bass. You could use it as a guitar. You could layer it in with stuff. It's a flavor thing. It could be the dominant thing in a song. That's really cool.
Yeah. I've used it for both of those things, the dominant thing and the flavor and bass. The pointed thing of the attack. So, but then how it dissipates so quickly is just a very, very useful tool in a track.
Right.
Very useful.
Totally. Well, thanks for bringing it over. It's a cool sound. If you guys have been looking into converting an old guitar into a rubber bridge, then maybe this will sway you in the direction of doing that.
Yeah. And if you're looking for one, you look at my friend Sam Hawksley on IG.
Sweet. Well, cool. Thank you, Sam, for Noel the Stella.
Noel the Stella. Sounds like a kid's program.
If you guys enjoyed our content, Hans has a ton of guitars, so we've gone through almost all of them. We've worked our way through. We even brought out the Boogie amp recently, and that was a lot of fun. So.
We did. There's a couple gems still in there.
Sweet.
They're continuing to be wacky. So there you go.
So yeah, check out those other episodes, and don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and we will see you guys next time. Later. Bye.